Let's dispel some rumors about the Paycheck Protection Program once and for all. There's a lot of confusion around covered periods, second draw funding, the 8-week waiting period, what lenders are saying, what the SBA is saying, and forgiveness. It's just all still floating around, and I can feel the tension and confusion as to what's going on with these programs. And because of this, I decided to go deep, to dive deep. So I've dug into multiple forms of SBA guidance, talked to some lenders, and compiled all this information into one place. That way we can all just kind of rest easy, knowing the correct process to take, or at least having a little bit more knowledge about the situation. That way we know what to expect. One thing with this is these processes are evolving over time, especially with all the PPP fraudsters coming out recently in the last month or so. We might see some processes change, even for a week or 2 or 3 weeks after I post this video. So things are constantly fluid. So just make sure you stay tuned for updates in the future. This is the best information we have as of right now. I hope it doesn't change much. It probably won't change 180, but there may be small tweaks just to help prevent fraud in the future. So many people are rightfully confused about the 8-week covered period and second draw funding. The reason for this confusion is it's a very confusing topic, and I don't blame anyone for being confused about this because, frankly, taking a look at this, I'm confused just on the surface view, and I have to really dig into these things to grasp it and really understand it. I mean, there's conflicting words from lenders. Some lenders say you have to wait the full 8 weeks. Some lenders say as long as it's good to go at the SBA, you're good to go and you can receive that second draw funding. There's conflicting words even at SBA support. I've had people both tell me that the SBA has said to them, just like a regular support representative, don't worry about the covered period, and other representatives say you have to wait the covered period. So it's conflicting across the board, and it really comes down to your situation, the rules, the actual SBA rules, the interim final rules, and how you can spend your PPP loan for full forgiveness. So there's a lot of puzzle pieces that we have to put together here. So let's start by talking about who is eligible for a second draw PPP loan in the first place. So this is straight on the SBA.gov website, second draw PPP loan. If we scroll down a little bit, who may qualify? A borrower is generally eligible for a second draw PPP loan if the borrower has previously received a first draw PPP loan and will or has used the full amount for authorized uses. We're going to talk about that a lot more, has no more than 300 employees, and can demonstrate at least a 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable periods comparing 2019 to 2020. So Q1 2019 to Q1 2020, or whatever works in your individual situation. And there's some more flexibility if you're a seasonal business or a business that started in the very beginning of the year 2020. So going on from here, we actually have some more additional guidance regarding second draw PPP loans and the targeted eligibility. So like I said, we're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole here to show what exactly is going on. So this targeted eligibility says the exact same thing. We're going to come back here for the forgiveness information, but it says the exact same thing as the SBA website. And then I was thinking, well, okay, this document has to have come from another document that's actually like legal text, like every other stimulus bill. We might have a summary, but that's based on some kind of legal mumbo jumbo. And I thought if I could find that document, then this would give us the root of the qualifications of what exactly we need to know. And I actually found that document, this massive multi-100-page document that talks about everything PPP, and I've spent a long time reading through this thing. So who is eligible for a second draw PPP loan? We're just going to go through all the criteria here. First off, you have to be a business concern. You have to just be a business. Most businesses qualify, whether you have employees, whether you're an independent contractor, whether you're a gig worker, most businesses hit that criteria. And then the next two are really the two criteria that can affect the second draw more than anything else. So you have to have previously received a first draw PPP loan. Now this is defined as having that PPP loan dispersed into your account and then coded at the SBA as dispersed. So you need to have the funds actually dispersed, and that's why you can't actually receive the first and second draw the same time as one deposit, even though that would make so much more sense. Looking back, I don't know why, if they're allowing businesses to receive 2 draws, why didn't they just allow eligible businesses to do 1 application for 2 draws? This would have literally cut down half of the paperwork, half of the hassle. It would have made so many people's lives so much easier, cut down on so much confusion, but they didn't do it that way. Maybe they'll learn from this next time. And then next, they have used or will use the full amount of the first draw PPP loan. This is including any increases you may have received in the first draw PPP loan if you happen to be one of like the few people who are able to increase their PPP loan. And this has to be done on or before the expected date on which the second draw PPP loan will be dispersed. Now this language is confusing, so we're going to break that down in just a second here. Also, you can't employ any more than 300 employees, and you have to have that reduction revenue of 25% or more. And again, there's different criteria based on seasonal businesses, based on a business that just started early 2020. So now we know the rules, but it's important to put this in context. So we really have two groups here. We have the group of individuals, the larger group, that are gig workers, independent contractors, solo operators who don't have employees. And then we have the smaller group of business concerns with employees of various sizes, from 2 employees, 1 employee, all the way up to 299, 300 employees. And these two groups need to consider things a little bit differently when it comes to how quickly you can receive that second draw after the first draw. And there's a little bit of gray area here, and this is where the confusion comes in. So getting 2 rounds without employees is the most simple. So luckily for the majority of people, it's the most simple. In order to be forgiven, in order to spend your PPP loan correctly if you have no employees, you simply just need to pay yourself. And what that means is basically the money goes into your account. And this seems to be getting more and more open with time. So originally the SBA would just come, this isn't written in any SBA interim rule or anything, but they would say, if you want to transfer weekly payments to your personal account, that's a good way to keep track of things. And then later on, the guidance was just getting more and more flexible to where they basically said, transfer the money into your account. It's considered paying yourself. So really paying yourself with no employees is simply that money is now in your account. And there's kind of 2 situations there where either someone has a business account and then they can transfer to a personal account, or they just have a personal account and the PPP loans was deposited right in their personal account. Either way, you've been considered paying yourself because payroll is an eligible expense. You can spend 100% on payroll and be totally fine. So it's extremely flexible if you pay yourself. Now, the reason why you're able to get a second draw PPP loan sooner than 8 weeks after receiving your first draw is there's no rule against paying yourself more. So there's only a rule with forgiveness of reductions in payroll. If you reduce payroll, you may have your forgiveness reduced. However, if you don't have employees, of course you're going to pay yourself the full amount. There is no rule against paying yourself an additional amount. And because of that, you can receive that deposit and you consider yourself having been paid that full amount early. So this is why certain lenders are allowing people to get the second draw PPP loan sooner than 8 weeks because it doesn't actually go against any SBA rule and just makes our lives a lot easier. Now, unfortunately, this is one of those areas where it's the gray area of law. It's just like paying yourself the weekly payments. If you want to be 100% the most safe, sure, pay yourself weekly payments, do it with checks. That way you have a record of, weekly payments. However, the consensus is you don't really need to do that. Same with the covered period, you can pay yourself a larger amount before the 8 weeks, and that's considered pay yourself. Now you could, again, just pay yourself weekly payments, but the general consensus is you don't really have to do that. So it's up to you. This is not financial advice. You can do it however you want to. I'm just telling you all the details, and then you can make the choice for yourself. Now the other group, businesses with employees. This is where things get a little bit more complicated and there's some more consideration here. These businesses have that same kind of gray area, but it's more complicated because it's based on the payroll. The calculation is based on employees. So you have funding for an 8-week period, but in order to get round 2, you're supposed to have spent or will spend that funding before you receive round 2. So they're in the same situation where, again, you can spend more than you spent in the past, but you just can't spend too much less. So there are situations where if you have employees, you could pay things up front, like bonus employees up front, you could pay expenses up front, and that would be totally fine in order to receive that second draw PPP loan sooner than 8 weeks. However, this is, like I said, where it gets pretty complicated, and I'm not sure if it's worth the hassle. You can make that choice yourself. Again, this is not financial advice, but it's just something to consider that there is some flexibility here if time is of the absolute essence for you. Now, that's probably something that you want to consult with your accountant with and make sure you have all the proper documentation and you're doing it right. Now, there's two things that we need to remember with forgiveness. First off, this program was built to make loans forgiven for eligible businesses who spend things in the right way. And then second, these rules that we're talking about really have to do with preventing businesses from double dipping on the same expense. So as always, in most cases, if you're a legitimate business spending things in the right way, there's very little cause for concern. Now, just to finish this off, let's talk briefly about eligible expenses. So again, you can spend 100% of your PPP loan on payroll. In most cases, that's the most simple way to do it. If you don't have employees, it's by far the most simple way to do it. But there's other things you can spend it on. Mortgage interest, that's on your business, and the mortgage has to be signed before February 15th, 2020. Rent for your business, utilities for your business, operations expenditure, which is basically any software that you might use to operate your business. Property damage costs due to public disturbances occurring in 2020 that wasn't covered by anything else. Supplier costs, which is again something that's pretty open. Generally, that's considered supplies for your day-to-day operations, and worker protection expenditures to prevent any contraction of COVID-19. Now, I know that these guidelines can be extremely confusing at times, and I just wanted to highlight the reason why there's conflicting opinions as to what exactly you can do regarding the covered period, what options you have at hand, and some considerations that you can potentially make with your PPP loan. But again, in most cases, eligible businesses who are legitimate should not have to worry about anything. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.